right. So thanks for coming on, Brian. For people who don't know who you are, tell us a little bit about yourself and the center that you're working with.
My name is Brian Saunier, the owner of Paradise Island Bowl.
Awesome. So we talked a little bit previously, but tell me a little bit about how some of the history of Island Bowl, as well as some of the history of how your family got involved in the bowling, because I know it goes back pretty far.
My grandfather actually built the center when it was called Corpin Lanes back around 1960. And we serviced and sanded and refinished the lanes for years there afterwards. And anytime he bought capital equipment, we always did the work there. And 2001, I had an opportunity to buy the bowling center because he wanted to retire. And he came to me because I had access to equipment because of All American Bowling equipment. And so it was a 16-lane bowling center where the kitchen was probably 5x8 or 6x8 in the bar area, and just a small little bar. In 2005, we added 16 lanes on, added on party rooms, sales office, outside terrace, kitchen. And then 2006, we added on volleyball court. And going backwards, 2002, we did an outside beach on the Ohio River.
Wow. Yeah.
We also have 400 feet of boat docks on the river. And it's kind of the history. That's where we're at.
Awesome. Yeah. I guess you had even recently, you had a bunch of renovations too. You were saying, right? 2019 or so?
Yeah, in September, we replaced the 16 lanes of pin setters of A2s with XLI Edge machines. Right before the league season was allowed us to open up with curtains. And this last year in June, on the other 8 lanes, we put Edge string machines in.
Oh, very cool. Yeah. How do you like those so far? It seems to be where things are moving towards these days.
I would have definitely go 16 lanes on the other side with string for sure.
Really? Yeah. And just because of the maintenance or the mechanics, or what do you think is some of the bigger draws?
Eliminate a pin chaser for that side because of split center.
Yeah.
Maintenance is a huge thing. Plus, I can also go on the app and I can see what's due on maintenance wise with how many frames were bowled on the string machines.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And then I can go on there and my guys can sit there and log on and they get to call to their phone and they go over, it tells them how to do it, tells them what tools they need. And if they can't read English, then they can watch a video.
Sounds easy enough.
Yep.
That's nice. So you're saying if you could go back, you'd do the whole 16 at once?
Absolutely.
Oh, wow. That's quite an endorsement. So that's a little bit about your center. I know a lot of your background goes back even further with the All-American Bowling. Would you mind sharing a little bit of that history as well? Because like I said, you're pretty heavily involved in the space.
My great-grandfather came over from France in 1892. And basically, we don't know if that was the beginning of his career or not. We don't believe that there was history before that over in France, but we have nothing to back ground on it. So today, my kids are taking it over, and they're the 5th generation.
Wow, that's the highest I've heard so far. I've heard a lot of 3s.
Yeah, a lot of. Yep.
But I have yet to hear a 5. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I don't know of anybody else.
Right. Yeah. So you live and breathe bowling.
Yep.
I'd like to hear a little bit too. You were saying you got a lot of, maybe not influence is the right word, but at least consultation from Craig at the main event. Tell me a little bit about how you've positioned your new center from like a traditional bowling house with leagues and everything more to the FEC style and what you're doing today. You know, how the business model's changed.
So Neil Hoffmeyer that started Main Events, did a lot of work for him back when he owned it up until he sold to the Australians. And then he moved on into part of Synergy out there, based out of Dallas. And we were sitting there, we built a couple centers, 3 centers for Synergy. And we were sitting at the bar one night for grand opening and asked him if he'd come look at my center and see what his thoughts were. Neil came to Pittsburgh, spent a week here with my daughter and I. We traveled around to a lot of different bowling centers. And basically, first thing he walked into the bowling center and says, you serve food and beverage? And I said, yeah, it's right there. The bar's right there. How do I know that if I walk in here, I don't see it? And basically, he's the one that talked me into taking out 8 lanes. And he invited me down to his place called Corky's down in Dallas. So we went down there, my daughter and I, and we spent a week down there with Neil, traveling around, looking at his place, which was axe throwing and vintage games and escape rooms. And basically, we drove around to all these different axe throwing places and looking at that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And basically, Neil helped me with a business model to go ahead and get rid of the 8 lanes and put the axe throwing in and move the bar out there and throw in virtual hologate. And we're basically capturing the age group that eat and drink.
Right. Yeah, you're saying more the middle-aged women who like the axe throwing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you said when you did the math, it was something like 3x on the revenue, just because of the dynamic, who pays for what.
We are double the business from 2019.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's incredible.
Double wow. Total.
Yes. Yeah. And now, how is your allocation shifted over the years from the bowling to the food and bev to maybe some of the ancillary stuff, if you have arcade or axe throwing or other things like that? How's your split changed?
When we first originally took it over, it was basically just a bar with just a couple items on food because it was so small. It was probably back then, I would say 80-20, meaning 80% bowling.
Okay.
Today, food and beverage, we're probably 75% to bowling.
Really? Wow. Yeah. And then what all is included in bowling? Like, what do you put, like the axe throwing or some of the other activities, or how does that fit in? I'm curious because people do differently. Just depends.
From a bowling standpoint, when a family comes in, you're charging the family $35 an hour, approximately number, and that includes the whole family. Mm-hmm. With axe throwing, instead of taking up 83 feet of length, but it's still the same width, we're taking up 22 feet of length.
Right.
And capture $25 per person for an hour and 15 minutes.
Yeah. And so I guess, yeah, that's a good point. I didn't even think of that, because you can fit how many bays of axe throwing per lane when you're looking at that? You said like 4?
8 lanes wide is the same. 8 lanes of axe throwing wide.
Okay. And then I guess you get the space in front reclaimed for whatever else hanging out, food and bev.
That's moved the bar to.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
All the games are out in the concourse, went into the old bar to create a game room. So you do all the games out in the concourse. And then we threw in social areas, 4 social areas, TVs and sofas, and then put like Jenga there or Connect 4.
Right.
Okay. Or cornhole.
Yeah.
So people have a place to go for a waiting list.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Then you're picking up that revenue while they're sitting there.
Yep.
Yeah. So pretty quickly, it's pretty apparent how you can double revenue in a couple of years.
Yep.
Yeah.
Things we're going to be doing here pretty soon with the Cubic AMF is we're going to be taking out the front desk and going with just kiosks.
Yeah. Yeah. That is the next one.
Yep. That's going to happen sometime later this fall.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Because I remember at the show last year, they were just unveiling. Are you one of the first people to get them, or are they actually out in operation?
No, we're going to be one of the first people to get them.
Okay. Wow. So yeah, it takes a little bit to get them out, but
and a little bit of helping them out as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool.
All American, we sell all their equipment to, residentials and do a lot of work for them for modernization.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And that's something. Sorry, what was that?
It's a win for both of us.
Exactly. And yeah, that's something I was curious too. So you're somewhat of a distributor for AMF, or how does that work between the two?
We basically are allowed to sell all brand new equipment for residentials, clubs, apartments, condos, community centers. So we have access to all their equipment.
Interesting. Okay.
And if it's a commercial center for modernization, we turn it over to the local sales rep, and we get the install out of it.
Okay, that makes sense.
And if it's a new center start, we turn it over to them, and we get the install because we gave them the lead.
It's only fair.
It's working good.
Yeah.
Working well.
That's awesome. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, that helps. I didn't quite understand because I figured you weren't producing your own equipment, but the installs in the distributor.
Yep.
I'm curious, what does the residential market look like right now? Or maybe like a bar that wants to put in 4 lanes or something like that. What's that scene looking like these days? It seems like a good differentiator.
COVID was a wonderful thing for residentials.
Yeah. Right.
We went a couple a year to 2 to 3 a month.
Wow. And that's just like bigger homes, or is it more like like military base?
No, big homes.
Okay.
People, yes.
Yeah. I'm thinking of the There Will Be Blood, if you ever saw that movie. He's got it downstairs. That's cool. Okay. And so then the only other thing I wanted to return to is, are you calculating like a profit per square foot to figure out some of what should go where, or how do you go think through that process when you're making those decisions?
We based it off of what the revenue was in that area, how much 8 lanes of bowling will do in a year.
Yeah.
What we could do by exposing the food and beverage and exposing the axe throwing and also the virtual hologate.
Okay. Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And then plus we got the restaurant area now that we didn't have before either.
Right. Yeah. All that extra space.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a really good idea. And so then when you say the 75-25, does it 25 in the bowling include like the axe throwing and the games, or is that separate?
That's going to be separate.
Okay. So then you broken out into 3 different categories, or
breakdown on it, but I can tell you that the axe throwing will do approximately what 16 lanes of bowling does.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. Yeah. That seems to be the big thing right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't know it was that much. So that's cool. Yeah. It's just interesting to see like where the profit centers are, and how bowling has become one piece, the main thing.
Yes.
But on the other side of that, it's one of the most accessible. So as far as the number of participants per year, I'm sure it's the highest participated in sport in the US. Anybody can bowl. And did I take it 18 plus for the axe throwing, or 21 plus, or?
Actually, we changed it because the Boy Scouts lowered their age group. 13.
Okay.
One of the things we do is we call an expert there, and he stays with you. So he does an introduction for the first 15 minutes while we do an hour 15 minutes of demonstration on how to hold an axe, how to throw an axe, what the 0 tolerance rules are, because it's in the bar area. And if you cross this line while the other 2 participants are there, you're asked to leave. So we're really strict about it.
Yeah.
Same time, the expert can just turn around and guide them, keeps the scores for them, socializes with them, interacts with them, and then also change up the games, explain the games. When it switch from regular target to tic-tac-toe, we can do it on a fly because we're doing it with projectors. Different from what we have looked at between a lot of different cities, as far as normally you go there, here's your axe, here's how you throw it, and they just walk away. I'll see you in an hour and your time's up.
Right. Yeah.
People can look up and see the clock countdown starts with 1:15, and when it gets down to 0, then they know their time's up. There's no arguing.
Okay. Yeah. So there's not as much referee.
And it's reservation only.
Okay. And you book online, or how do you handle that?
We're going to go live here very shortly with that.
Okay. And that's through Conquer, or what are you going to use?
We're going to go through Conquer. Yes.
Cool. Yeah. That's probably a nice arrangement. You get all the newest stuff through them.
Yes.
That's cool.
We use it as a show center.
Yeah. And it sounds like a real class spot to do that. It's not just out in the middle of nowhere on display.
Yeah. Yep.
Cool. The next one I wanted to ask you about is, it seems like everybody's having trouble with the staffing and recruiting, some more than others, but what are you guys doing to, attract and maintain a good staff, or to recruit people? What kind of stuff do you guys do?
Difficult. It's still difficult.
Yeah.
I don't really deal with it all. It's my daughter.
Okay. What kind of stuff does she do, or, how are you guys getting through and getting people?
I can't answer that, to be honest with you.
I'll have to talk to her.
pretty much, or I let her run I let the kids run it.
Okay.
So I'm kind of like on the outside,
Got it.
but I'm there for when we sit here and do, modernizations and stuff like that.
Okay. Yeah. So actually that brings up a good point that I did want to touch on. And I think you'd be a perfect person to talk to about it, is that transition for you guys to the 5th generation. A lot of centers opened up in the past 30 years or so, and we're seeing a big switch over. How are you approaching that transition of power? What does that look like for you guys?
Explain that to me again.
So just how are you guys approaching this handoff from you? And you said you're starting to be on the outside, giving control to your you said son and daughter.
Yeah.
What's your thought process through like the best way to transfer this over? You just throw them in, or there's like a training, or because I'm sure there's lots of other people who are on the verge of looking to move their way out. What do you say to them on how to best approach that?
Brandon, Rich, and Ashley Rich has been with me 22 years, 23 years.
Wow.
Ashley's been with me ever since she got out of college.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing. And Brandon actually worked in the centers as well while he was in high school. So they were familiar with being involved in it.
Yeah.
And then when my wife retired out of All American, Ashley started doing now the bowling centers. She doing the accounting. Then Ashley was taught how to do that.
Okay.
And then unfortunately, 2 years ago, when my sister-in-law passed, she was doing All American. So Ashley's now doing all 3 books. But she also sees the center, but she's got good management down there.
Yeah, I see. So it's somewhat of a gradual process of handing different responsibilities off.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. And then
not run like yesterday.
Modernizing, you're saying?
Yep. Yeah. You just got to keep changing and move forward.
Right. Yeah. Because I think that's not just something in bowling, but a lot of business where people are ready to move on to their next chapter. And there's definitely a transition period, and that has to be worked out. And there's not always someone to step up. Yeah. So then the only other thing I wanted to go over with you is actually 2 different things, is what your number 1 piece of advice would be for someone who's running a center, as someone who's done it and been in the industry for a very long time. What would be, hey, you'd say, hey, this is what's worked really well for me, or this is what I would suggest you do?
In some of the larger centers, downsize the center and put other attractions in there.
Yeah.
Whether you want to focus on minors or you want to focus on an older age, that's what I would suggest.
Yeah.
Right.
So clear a little space from the lanes.
Yes. 40 lane bowling centers we're just not building them anymore.
Yeah.
Back in the mid 90s, I swear that's all we were building was 40 lanes. Today, it's down to 18 lanes, 16 lanes, 8 lanes, 10 lanes. With the biggest thing is because of the square footage of what a lanes take.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, we just talked to Kevin, did the same exact thing, from 40 down to 28 and do an event. Yeah. That's really interesting to see as we make that transition. Is that something you've seen more as of late, or is it something that's been going on, for a long time?
It's been going on for a while before COVID.
Yeah.
Not a whole lot, but more so from the grounds up. Not opening up as traditional centers. It's been years since we built at a traditional bowling center.
Like over a certain number, or you're just saying it all? It's
probably been the last traditional center I built was probably about 6 years ago.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely.
It was 36 lanes in a row.
Yeah.
And all it was bowling with a bar.
Yeah, they just don't do it as much anymore.
No.
Okay. So then the last thing I just wanted to ask you, and pretty much in line with what we were just talking about, is where you see the industry going. It sounds like you're saying it's that diversification and more of the FEC style.
Absolutely.
Okay. Is there an iteration beyond that, or like we talked about Kevin's doing the events and stuff like that? Is there something you see beyond that people are moving to, or right now it's just all the migration to FEC?
I see it going to the FEC. It's just a matter of what age group that you want to attract.
Yeah.
What's around you. So like other bowling centers around us, we have a Family Bowl Away, which is, if you look up there north of us, and you look at 28, which is to the east of us, which was like a triangle.
Yeah.
Nice is because we're all three an FEC, but we each have their own little nick to what we're doing.
Right.
And the nice part is we're not competitors.
Right. Yeah. There's plenty of people. Once you diversify out into other markets, there's plenty of people to go around. Everybody eats and drinks.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good point. And then I like what you're saying about pick your target market, because I just talked to Sean from York at Laser Alleys.
Yep.
And they do a lot of birthday parties and camp events in the summer and youth adult league. So they have that really parent-child aspect to it. Whereas you're saying you like the middle age and the people who are going to eat and drink, and you're pursuing that market. I like that. Okay. Well, yeah, that's about all I had for today. I do really appreciate you coming on. Happy to share this with you at the end. But again, yeah, thanks for coming on, and I look forward to connecting in the future. You go into the expo this year?
Probably.
Okay, great. I plan to be there with Dan.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah, no, that'll be a lot of fun.
Yep. Cool.
All right. Yeah,
all
thanks again, Brian.
All right, thanks for. All right, take care.
Talk to you. Bye.
All right.